Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, just to get right to it. So, like, okay, basically because I was just my bed is behind me, so I was just kind of like sitting there, and I thought it's kind of um, so the lack of gray matter in my brain, obviously, um, the lack of gray, okay, see, that's why there's these pauses. Like just then I was like, lack of gray matter is my brain, and it's like, and then I pause. See, so these pauses and things, it's because of the lack of gray matter, because the gray matter keeps getting killed, and when the gray matter is killed, it like kind of it blocks my speech flow, and it just kind of causes because it's like a physical, like that physical matter in the brain is dead, and when it dies, then it stops the flowing ability. Like it actually physically blocks my mind's thinking and therefore my speaking as well because it just like kind of just blocks it and just kind of phases out my it just kind of or well it's like when it dies then it just I lose touch with my thoughts and my voice, and because of that then it's like it basically just gets to the point where basically what happens is it it just completely like basically it just dumbs me. Like meaning it just gets me to this point where I just space out and there's a second where I've just lost touch with awareness and like I'm just unaware and I've just basically dumbed out where I'm just lost touch with the reality and I'm just in this state of just spacing out and just kind of not being conscious of myself. It's like I'm just kind of in the state of spacing out and like I'm not thinking anything, but it's just my conscience meaning like the conscience that I control. So it's like right now, like I'm in control of my conscience. Like to, I'm choosing right now, I'm in control of my conscience. So like I'm choosing to make a circle around that dude's head and there's, like lines coming out of the circle and inside the circle it's like a abomination leech thing, and he's like leeching out and it's like grabbing him and he's see that what just came in like there's this abomination leech thing he's grabbing in and this guy's head is like the you know this guy's head is like the thing that this demon is having sex with. Um, I don't know. That weird thought just came in. That idea just came in. But okay, but the point is the point is I'm conscious of what I just said there. See, the point is I'm conscious. So but and like my mind was controlling what the ideas that I just and like I'm consciously in control of where I direct my mind, where I think, and I'm control of what I think and what I say. That's like what is when I'm conscious, when I'm control of myself, and that's what happens. But what happens is it gets to a certain point where the gray matter in the brain basically it gets to the point where so much of the gray matter is lost that like because in order for me to be in control of myself, there has to be that physical matter in it that it's actually a lot alive. So therefore, I can actually move around my brain stuff, but like move around my brain so that I can actually be in conscious of it. But like, but the fact that um yeah, so like move around, get and like see just then I kind of just then like there was just where I was starting to kind of fade into oblivion there. Um, but the gray matter keeps dying, and when it dies, then basically, um, yeah, when it dies, then it gets me into that. See, like just then, it's happening right now, and basically what it is, it's that world of unawareness where basically just the gray matter, all of it dies, where basically it gets to the point where there's so much of a lack of gray matter that I'm not able to basically consciously like be in charge of my mind, where I am consciously controlling my own thoughts and my mind and stuff. Like it's just kind of this state where I'm just frozen and like I'm just basically unaware that I'm not in control of my own mind. I'm not in control. Like my brain isn't in control of itself. That it conscious. My brain isn't conscious of itself. That it is. My brain is not conscious of itself. That it is thinking about it and thinking of, or my brain is not conscious of itself, that it's thinking about its own thoughts and thinking about um things around it, stuff like that. See, and that's the so yeah, so my brain's not conscious there of it, of like I'm not conscious when I'm the point where I'm not consciously in control of it, all that, then yeah, I think you probably I've probably repeated this so much now that like you're probably at this point, like I'm repeating it to my, or I'm not repeating it to myself. I'm repeating it to this video, but I think at this point you probably already, at this point you're probably like, just get on with it. I get it. I think that's probably like you've already understood, but I'm just kind of repeating it to myself. Um, but yeah, you're just kind of like get on with it. I already get, like you already got what I said the first time I said it. Like you understood it. So I think you're probably like get on with it. So like the fact I'm speaking, just repeating it multiple times is more for myself than it is for you, because you understood the first time I said it probably, but it's like I have to repeat it to myself multiple times before I feel like I understand what I'm saying, and I already understand it. It's the feeling. The feeling is deception. Feeling is not understanding. See, my feeling is that I don't understand it, and the feeling is from the lack of gray matter. But the feeling does not determine the fact. The fact is that I understand it, and I already understand it. The feeling is what compels me to have to say it repeatedly, when in reality, I understood it the first time, and so did you. I understood it the first time I said it, and you understood it the first time I said it, but I don't feel like I understood it, so then that's why I'm saying it again. But yeah. So it basically, when the gray matter leaves, then yeah, it just gets into that point where I'm just not conscious, and I just kind of space out, and I'm not like aware of what's happening in that second. Like I'm not aware, and it just kind of phases out where my brain's not running, and I'm just kind of frozen in this state of unawareness, which is really not. It's not a pleasant thing, um, but yeah, I'm used to it now. Especially when I had severe mental illness. Like right now, even right now, it's not pleasant. But like um, even right now, it's not pleasant. But like how much more unpleasant was when it was just like when I was severely mentally ill for 7 years, like where just every single second of every day was me just spacing out and just being just completely brain dead and having no ability to consciously think, and it was just horrible. Of just everything was just fading into oblivion and unawareness, and just state of just complete and utter uselessness, essentially. Complete and utter uselessness. So yeah. Um, so it's like, and it's bad now, but how much worse was it? Or yeah, it was obviously like as bad as it is now, but like 20 times as bad as it is now. So back then, basically. But that's over with though. Um, anyway, so but originally, originally what I was getting at though in this video, um, basically, yeah, okay, so and like I said, the lack of gray matter, like it blocks, because without that matter, then it basically blocks the flow of my thinking and my speaking. So I was on my bed there, and I was like, I just talked to myself because like, well, like that's what sane people do. You know, people say if you're insane, then you don't talk to yourself. Actually, no, you're insane if you don't talk to yourself. If you talk to yourself, you're sane. So, um, but but anyway, essentially what I'm saying is like, so I was sitting on the bed and like it's kind of like um okay, not kind of like, but what it is basically like I was just sitting there and I was like basically talking to myself, but I thought like, and I was kind of talking to myself, but then the gray matter was causing me to space out, and I really just I wasn't getting anywhere because I was just talking to myself, then spacing out, and talking to myself, spacing out, and I wasn't getting anywhere essentially. So um yeah, because I just kept the gray matter brain kept causing me to space out and kept just interrupting the flow of my speech, and I would just kind of say something and then I'd just sit there and just in unawareness for just several minutes and stuff, and then it would, happen different times. But um, yeah, so um, yeah, so anyway, so basically the idea was like if I essentially spoke to a camera, like it's almost like because if I'm just sit, sitting there, then it's like it's kind of there's a less of a motivation to speak than as if there's like a camera and I'm being recorded. It's like it's almost like I mean, either way, the lack of gray matter is going to be the same whether I'm there or here, because whether having a camera or not is, obviously that's a different thing, and it's not going to make any difference with the lack of gray matter in my brain. But it's like the camera is something that like speaking to the camera basically is like what the idea or my idea was basically that's kind of what like basically my idea was like maybe it's something that would help kind of motivate me to speak so that I can kind of finish it out quicker. Um, so or I can actually finish the ideas I'm processing like quicker because I have a motivation of the camera that I'm being recorded to like kind of finish it quicker than I would finish it if I just was like speaking it to myself and not, video recording it. So, um, all right. Um, okay. Yeah. Um, yeah. All right. So basically the idea is like neglect. Not neglect, but like human neglect. Like, okay, it's like neglect is like, okay, it's like, so I was just watching a part of a TV show and just kind of, it was like the character was kind of like going up to another character and he was like, I kind of would not want you to be here because basically what it comes down to is like he was basically like, um, he didn't like, how do I say it? Okay. Okay, yeah, it's like basically he was embarrassed. Like he was embarrassed that the other guy came up and was like talking to him. Um, so it's just interesting because like he was embarrassed about it and he was basically he was saying is like I don't want these other people to see you because basically you're embarrassing me and it like makes me uncomfortable or it makes me uncomfortable if these other people see you basically. And so, and like, and that's kind of like and it's like I had to stop and think about that because it's like that's something that happens, or that's a real life thing. Like it's in the show, of course, but it's replicated off real life. So yeah, I just had to think about it. So I just had to think about it because it's like that was just too like interesting. Like I had to not like I had to think about it. It was just too interesting. So I couldn't just watch it and just keep watching the show. I had to think about it before I continued on. Um, but essentially because I think what it comes down to is like um, yeah. So my analysis of that was like because people okay because hmm, okay um yeah, just making sure I'm not getting into blasphemy in any way right now. Um, yeah, no, I'm definitely not in blasphemy at all right now. So, um, yeah, nothing out of so, all right, anyway, but essentially what it comes down to, um, okay, because he, it's like, see, and this is what love does, or this is how love is, or this is like the essence of love. It's like love is like because in the show, the character I'm talking about, um, basically he said like so he was just saying like you're kind of embarrassing like it's kind of you know if these other people at the school see you then it's kind of like you're gonna look bad or I mean not you're gonna look bad but like if these other people see you then like that's gonna make or it's like that's gonna kind of in their eyes that's gonna make me not look good and it's like he's kind of embarrassed because he kind of didn't really he kind of didn't want the other people, to think kind of badly about himself because the other people saw this one guy. Um, and like now, I would think like okay, like if you're the guy that this guy's talking to, like basically, can you just hide yourself because you're kind of embarrassing me, like or you're embarrassing me because the other people were gonna see you. It's like my thoughts like the natural response to that would be like the natural or like not the natural response but like oh well yeah I mean the natural response like I think most people um yeah I mean I think yeah it's definitely a majority thing but like most people if most people like hearing that would just be like like come on you're embarrassed of seeing me and they would kind of get offended because it's like they would get offended because it's like the other person is like um they would get offended because the other person is like kind of like um so it's like they would get offended because it's like the other person basically because see it's like I think most people um okay because okay well because how this guy responded he said like instead of get or okay well I'll just say basically his response was like I totally understand like I understand like I understand, it's like that that I totally understand, it's like yeah, I understand that you don't want them to see me, it's like that's just normal, and he didn't take it as like a personal like he didn't. he didn't like take it badly, like, as like a personal offense, that kind of thing. He's like, I totally understand it, and um okay, so but I think most people is like, like I understand where you're going through, or I understand because like you would, I understand like in your shoes, it makes sense, and it's not wrong, it's fair that you would feel that way, about me, that you don't want them to see me because I would kind of embarrass you, it's like, I understand, I get that, and like so, and to me, like, I really love that, like, I just love that kind of attitude because it's like this guy's dead. It's like he's a dead man because I just love that so much because it's like he's a dead man because it's like he doesn't, because I think most people when they see that they would be like most people in that situation would respond like, you're embarrassed because of me, like you are embarrassed because of me, like come on, and it's like most people, instead of thinking about it the way that this guy thought about it, they would, most people would just be like, um, I think most people would be like, basically they would feel demeaned. Like most people, if someone's like says, I don't want you to be here because basically you're kind of going to lower my respect among these other people, and like just you being here is going to make me look bad because you're kind of a lesser, or not a lesser person, but well, yeah, like you're just kind of lesser, you're something that would, it kind of is lesser than, these other people's ideas of things, and like you would kind of, because you're lesser in not that like because you're I mean, well, yeah, like basically, yeah, basically it's like because you're lesser than like you would, yeah, so it's like because you're lesser than like these other people, like being with you is gonna lower my status, and um and it's like, so yeah, like being like it would lower the status, and then yeah, um because basically you're kind of a, you're not really like, you're not really something that would make me look good, you're not something that would be a desirable thing to like make me be honorable or something, and that's basically kind of what it comes down to, and like, or that's what it comes down to, and it's like, but and I think most people in that kind of situation, most people would, um I think most people would like see that, and most people would like go like, um yeah, I think it's like most people when they see that they would be like, they would take it, um as a like a personal offense, like I think most people in that situation they would be like, come on, like you, like okay, most people would basically be offended because, and see, and the reason most people would be offended is because when someone tells them like to not, like they don't want them there because they're gonna make them look bad, then it's like they feel like that would cause them to get insecure basically, because again, when people are upset, when people are mad, when people kind of get offended, that kind of thing, it's always because they're insecure inside, because if they're, because like basically it's because what someone said to them, it actually causes them to be insecure inside, and yeah, it's like what they said is like it makes them feel like they don't matter basically, and because it makes them feel like they don't have worth inside, then that's why they get upset about it because they're basically closing up. They're what they're doing is they're basically like closing up, and they're closing up, basically because they feel offended inside, and they're kind of because they don't like feeling weak. Like as humans, we don't like to feel weak. We don't because that's not how we're designed to be. That's not how we're supposed to be. That's not how we are made to be. That's not, how we're made to be. Like as humans, we're designed for honor. We're designed to have dignity, and when our dignity is and when our sense of dignity, when we feel our dignity is gone, then it makes us feel weak, and we don't like that, and because we don't like that, then, it makes sense. We don't like to feel weak. We want to feel strong, but when we feel weak, it's like, that's what makes us want to cover it up. It's what makes us want to do something to try to get ourselves to feel strong, and to feel and to not be in that state of weakness that causes us to feel weak and insecure. And because of that, that's why people will do these things. That's why they will, if someone hurts them, then they'll go and they'll like try to hurt them back because it makes them feel stronger, and that's just how it works. And it's not the best way to do it, but that's just like why it happens basically. Um, and I just, man, man, so I guess that's just like, sorry, but sorry, but sorry. Okay. Um, well, I'm not sorry actually. That's the normal. I'm not sorry actually. It's a normal thing that I get emotional about this. Um, or yeah, I'm not sorry because it's I think just a normal thing that I get. Yeah, it's a good thing that I get emotional about it. Basically, it's a normal thing that, yeah, normal thing that, um, yeah, it's a normal thing basically that is good. It makes sense, and yeah, it's appropriate that I get emotional about this. So I guess I'm not sorry. Yeah, so, um, yeah, no, the normal, appropriate, you know, um, yeah, makes sense that I get um, emotional about it. So that's totally good. But anyway, um, but Um, but yeah, I guess what I'm saying though is like, um, anyway, um, yeah, but back to what I was saying though. Um, back to what I was saying though. Essentially, I think, um, yeah, I think that, um, okay, okay, I'll come back. Okay, all right, all right, yeah. So, okay, yeah, a whole nother thing just idea came in, but I'm not gonna talk about that now. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah. So basically, yeah. So going back to what I was talking about there. Yeah. So as I was saying, most people when they would hear that, like most people's response would be, um, yeah. Basically, yeah. So most people's response would be, um, I think to like in that situation, they're embarrassed or other person like basically is embarrassed by them. I think most people would kind of take that as an insult. Most people would kind of, um, because they don't have a sense of love for themselves, they would kind of feel insecure, because it's like basically this person is, in their perception, they would see it as like this person has something against them and thinks that they're, not a cool person, that they're, that he's embarrassed to see you, and or yeah, that he's embarrassed to see you there. Um, and yeah, that's kind of, um, yeah, that he's like embarrassed to see you, and that's kind of the um, thought process of like, um, um, yeah, it's like he's embarrassed to see you, and that kind of thing, and it's like, um, or yeah, so that person would kind of, I think most people in that situation would kind of take it as a personal insult because they would, because they would, because instead of seeing the other person's perspective, that maybe the person doesn't really have anything against themselves, but it's just like something to do with them and just kind of the struggles that that person has with how even with basically like with his social, like how this person struggles is like um it's like to him, or it's like instead of them seeing basically that, instead of that person seeing that, it's like perceiving it as something that's outside of themselves, like it's not something to do with him, but it's like just this person has like a social status, and or this person is basically like, um this person just, it's not anything against himself, but it's just like this person has his own life, and it's kind of, certain things will just make it harder for him, just in the eyes of, and just make his kind of social life, or just kind of his social life, or like, social life, the way that other people perceive him and kind of respect him, that, it would just kind of make it hard. It would make it harder for him if he saw him, or yeah, it would make it harder for this person if those other people saw him, because that would lower their image of him, this person. So it's like, it's like I think most people wouldn't perceive it as something outside of themselves, and like, or well, yeah, but not something outside of themselves, but most people wouldn't perceive like why the person is embarrassed to, for the other people to see themselves. I think most people in that situation wouldn't think about think about others, but most people would just think about themselves. Most people wouldn't think about other people, would think about themselves. Um, and or yeah, so most people basically wouldn't they wouldn't perceive it, they wouldn't be aware of it as something like, I think most people, their immediate response would be to internalize it and kind of internalize it themselves and get like offended by it. Like, oh, you're embarrassed, like you're embarrassed to see me, like come on, like you're most people would kind of internalize it, and they would, you know, immediately develop in themselves like a sense of being demeaned, because it's like the other person is saying that you're someone that, like, if the other people see them, then you are basically will bring embarrassment to me, and most people would kind of, yeah, most people would just take it selfishly, and they would kind of get offended, or they would internalize it themselves, and kind of, you know perceive that they're being demeaned and that kind of thing. But most people wouldn't perceive not that, but perceive like what's going on outside of themselves, like with the person, like, and just the struggles it would be if the other people, for the person that, if the other people saw you, then it would create a struggle for that person, and most people would just think about themselves and not think about the other person, and like, see the struggle from the other person's perspective, the other person's, just see it from the other person's perspective, and the other person's, you know kind of experience, or yeah, most people would just internalize it and just basically think about it from in with themselves, but most people would not think about it, and like most people would just internalize it and personalize it, but most people wouldn't be selfless enough to, like, instead of internalizing it themselves, like to perceive and um to see the perspective, um of the other person and how it is for the other person. So, um yeah, and kind of, because most people would be too busy personalizing it, internalizing it themselves, then they wouldn't have the selflessness to see it from the other person's perspective, and then be able to empathize and like understand from the other person's perspective. Um, so yeah, um, yeah. So and yeah, so that's basically what I'm saying, is like that's why, um just that little part of it just kind of made an impact because, or just a little part of the show I was watching made an impact um, because it made an impact because like it's um, because like what I admire about it basically because it made an impact basically is that you know because that's love, and that's like what I really loved about it is that he was selfless, instead of kind of perceiving it badly and just kind of internalizing himself, like he didn't think about himself, and that's what love does because see people like that, people that are like that, people that don't easily get offended by themselves, people that don't easily or people that don't like internalize things and people that kind of just um have that kind of character basically those are people that basically the reason they're like that is because they have a sense of value, and they know their own worth, they know their own value, they know their own worth, and because they have a sense of like value for themselves, then it's like, if someone else says something to them that is kind of not like necessarily a kind of an honorable um kind of that's basically not saying that like not something like someone says something about them that basically isn't something that really honors them or just makes them like an honorable have an honorable kind of image. um I think it's like people like that. It's like they don't internal, and it doesn't offend them because it's like because we're like um it doesn't offend them because we're like, well, but it's like um because they have a sense of value, because they know that they know themselves, they know that they are valuable, they know that they are valuable people, and because of that, like it doesn't, if someone says something, like it doesn't cause them to get upset because it's like they don't have insecurity, they don't have like such a weak sense of self that they get insecure about those things that like if someone says something that's not necessarily favorable toward them, like they someone says something that's not favorable to them, it's like um um yeah, someone says something to them that's not favorable to them, it like um basically what it is, it's like it doesn't cause them offense because like they just they're not worried about themselves because they know that they have intrinsic, they know their own value, and they have a strong sense of self that it's like when someone says something to them, like they don't think about, like they don't internalize it and get upset about it because they have a strong sense of self and value, and they know that like what other people says doesn't really matter, and that doesn't make them unvaluable if someone else thinks something about them or says something to them, and because of that, then they don't really internalize it, but instead of kind of taking it in themselves, like you know they perceive the other person's perspective, because um um yeah um yeah, basically, yeah, is what I just said. um so yeah, and that's just kind of the humility, that's the humility that they have, and that's think that's something that's very important. The humility and stuff that they have, I think, is important. Well, yeah, that's just what I think is important is the humility, and yeah, that's just why I think it's important because it's like Um, yeah, that's basically why I think it's important because um, yeah, and that's just really my analysis really. Yeah, and that's just I mean yeah, it is important. That's a very important because that's a very important relational skill because if you don't have that skill, then you will always perceive other people as people that are against you, and you're always going to see things in a negative viewpoint, which is not going to be good for you, and it's not going to help you relate with other people because you won't have a clarity to like see what's going on with other people and perceive what's happening with other people, and therefore relate with them and be selfless to connect with them because you're just going to be thinking about it and just internalizing it and as yourself, and which will cause you to, you know, break from them, and that's just not going to be good. So, um, yeah, so yeah, so that's definitely an important just relational skill thing. In it, but that's kind of by the way, but yeah, so it's kind of just by the way, so yeah, but that's just kind of yeah, that was just my analysis. That was just kind of my analysis, and that's just kind of why that specific scene in that TV show I was watching kind of just yeah, that's why it grabbed my attention and like I had to think about it before I moved on because well I haven't moved on yet but yeah but yeah I just had to think about it because that's just something that I really love because that's just um I just love that character that people like that have. I just love that kind of character because yeah, it's just so important to yeah, just that yeah, that like people that don't internalize things because yeah, they just have this selflessness in them, and the selflessness is a result of they know their own value, and they know they have a sense of love and dignity for themselves that because of that, you know, they don't like they know that they are valued, so it's like they don't have to like if someone demeans them, it's like they are valued, so it's like it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect them, and and like unfavorable things toward them doesn't cause them to like get it doesn't cause them to feel insecure, to have less of an like of a it doesn't cause them to feel insecure or have like less of a um image of themselves that are causes them to like be upset because it's like it just doesn't bother them because they know their own worth, they know their own um worth, and because of that, then um it's like what other people says doesn't bother them because as I know it's like it's not it doesn't take away their worth. It's just what other people say, and it doesn't bother them. It doesn't take away their worth. Um, yeah, yeah, that's yeah, that's all it was. Because yeah, I just like that moment of just understanding. Um, I just like that moment of selflessness and just yeah, love that character just kind of showed where yeah, it was just that humility because he, like I already said, and yeah, he just kind of um, saw the other person's perspective and um, um, yeah, that was just yeah, that was just yeah, I just love that moment. Yeah, it was just a really great moment. Yeah, so yeah, yeah, so yeah, I just like the love, just that character characteristic of love, and yeah, so um, yeah, so, so all right, yeah, and it was just a good thing. It's like the character that he was speaking it to. Obviously, it was a good thing that he had that selflessness because it helped the other person be able to relate with him. And that was the yeah, that was the or well, it because of that, then it made the other character like know that he was cared and he was loved, and you could see it just in the scene of the show. It's like that character knew that he was loved by the other person, and you know, there's just he knew that like it was just he knew that he was someone that he was safe with because he's not going to judge him, and he's going to understand him correctly and not you know lash out because of a internal or like a kind of taking an offense by something that and it's just a moment where the other person was valued basically because of that, because of being loved like that. He was valued by the person that loved him because yeah so he's valued by the person. So um all right um so yeah anyway, um I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I want to say. Uh, but no, nothing. So that's basically it. So all right.